Just when it seemed like trade avenues for Kirk Cousins were drying up for the Atlanta Falcons, especially after the Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh news, ESPN has thrown a couple of intriguing new lifelines. Their experts have cooked up alternative trade packages for the 37-year-old, $180 million quarterback, and a familiar NFC North team has emerged as a new favorite landing spot. Before diving into the proposals, it's worth remembering just how turbulent Cousins' short 17-month tenure in Atlanta has been, as recapped by ESPN's Falcons reporter, Mark Raimondi. The relationship between the Falcons and Cousins has been marked by drama ever since the 4-year deal he signed last offseason. Raimondi wrote, he highlighted Cousins accidentally outing the Falcons for tampering during his introductory press conference, his expressed displeasure with the Michael Penix Jr. draft pick, his eventual benching for Penix in Week 16 after throwing 18 TDs and 69 INTs, and his admission during Super Bowl week about dealing with an end-of-season injury unknown to the Atlanta front office. With a trade feeling increasingly necessary, if not imminent, ESPN's Dan Graziano and Seth Walder have both pointed towards the Minnesota Vikings as a prime destination. First, Dan Graziano's trade package. Graziano proposes the Falcons send Kirk Cousins to the Vikings in exchange for a 2026 fifth-round pick, a 2027 seventh-round pick, cash considerations. It makes sense for all three sides, really, including Cousins himself. Graziano wrote, he wants a chance to start, and he could use his no-trade clause to nix a deal to anywhere he doesn't want to go. But if he has to be a backup, we know he enjoyed living in Minnesota and playing for the Vikings. Plus, JJ McCarthy is still an unknown after a significant knee injury, so maybe this would turn into more than just a QB2 destination. Remember, when Cousins left Minnesota a year and a half ago, he did so with the third most passing yards in franchise history, and the departure was amicable. This makes a reunion seem plausible. Next, Seth Walder's trade package. Walder also sends Cousins to the Vikings, but with a different return for Atlanta. Kirk Cousins traded for quarterback Sam Howell in a one-for-one swap with financial considerations. The key to compensation for a Cousins deal is how much of his guaranteed money the acquiring team will take on, Walder explained. I'll raise Dan's bid and say the Vikings will pay $12 million of it. That would allow Atlanta to get out from under some of the situation and come away with a different backup quarterback. Walder's deal is framed as a no-harm, no-foul approach. While Howell might technically be a downgrade at backup, achieving the mission of moving on from the Cousins era could be worth it for Atlanta. For Cousins, who has publicly stated he wants to be a starter, return to the team that let him walk, potentially as a backup, would be a big moral mountain he'd have to climb. For Minnesota, the backup quarterback upgrade is more important because of the McCarthy situation. Walder concluded, Cousins would have to accept a lesser role on his old team, but at least he'd reunite with coach Kevin O'Connell. Both scenarios offer the Falcons a way out of a complicated situation, providing some form of compensation and salary relief. For the Vikings, it's a chance to bring in a proven veteran who knows the system and could either push or support their young quarterback. What are your thoughts on these ESPN trade proposals? Could you see Kirk Cousins back in purple and gold? Which deal makes more sense for the Falcons and the Vikings? And how do you think Cousins would feel about a potential return to Minnesota, possibly in a backup role? Let us know your opinions in the comments below. The Atlanta Falcons have made a bold declaration, officially placing their future squarely on the shoulders of their promising young quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. But this exciting new chapter isn't without its significant complexities. Looming large over franchise is a substantial contract of veteran Kirk Cousins, casting a financial shadow that the team must navigate. Atlanta is ushering in a new era, entrusting the offensive reins to Penix Jr., a quarterback now in his second year, assuming the draft was last year's implied by second-year quarterback in the context of him being the future after Cousins signing last offseason, who is brimming with potential. The organization's hope is that Penix Jr. will not only lead them on the field, but also blossom into the undisputed face of the franchise. His youthful energy and dynamic play style represent a fresh start for a team eager to redefine its identity and climb back into contention. However, the commitment to Penix Jr. as a starter is complicated by the continued presence of Kirk Cousins, and more specifically his hefty contract. Cousins, a seasoned quarterback known for his consistent, if sometimes unspectacular performance, remains a capable player. But his contract represents a significant financial storm that the Falcons front office must carefully manage. The ongoing possibility of trade negotiations involving Cousins adds another layer of intrigue and uncertainty to Atlanta's strategic planning. Will they find a willing partner? And at what cost? The Falcons find themselves at a critical crossroads, attempting to balance their immediate competitive aspirations with their long-term vision. Penix Jr. clearly represents that future, a beacon of hope for fans and the organization alike. Yet, the financial implications tied to Cousins' deal demand astute management and strategic foresight. The team is essentially weighing the benefits of fully investing in and developing their young talent against the potential stability, or perhaps the trade value, that an experienced veteran like Cousins could still provide, even if it's on the bench or another roster. By choosing to invest their future in Michael Penix Jr., the Falcons have signaled a clear commitment to building a team for sustained success down the line. The path ahead is undoubtedly filled with challenges: developing a young quarterback, managing a tricky salary cap situation, and meeting fan expectations. But it also offers immense potential for growth and, ultimately, success. As the dust settles from any further trade discussions or financial maneuvering, the Falcons' decision will be judged by what happens on the gridiron. The upcoming seasons will reveal whether the significant gamble pays off, establishing Penix Jr. as the true cornerstone of the franchise's resurgence. What are your thoughts on the Falcons' strategy? Is going all in on Michael Penix Jr., while Kirk Cousins is still on the roster the right move? How should they handle the financial implications of Cousins' contract? Let us know your opinions in the comments below.